You do
You
not
do not
belong in
belong in
this
this
room.
room.
The words landed like a gavel. Ray Whitmore's thick index finger was 2 inches from Loretta Simpson's face when the whole south end of the Grand
Sorry,
Cambria
ma'am, need you to get
ballroom
out
went
here.
still.
Get out, ma'am, now!
Get her to the back. Tonight. And take whatever that is with her.
A champagne flute
Why
stopped
are you
moving.
still waiting? Get out now!
A woman's hand froze mid-reach. The string quartet in the southeast corner fell silent the way a clock stops in a power cut, sudden and total, not one bow moving. She steadied herself. A black
I'll
woman
have
in
a
her
dry
60s,
martini.
deep brown skin,
Certainly, sir.
silver and black hair pinned back in a low bun with a tortoiseshell clip, a gold cross at her throat, burgundy church dress pressed flat. She held a folded white note card between both hands. She said nothing. Whitmore turned to the security guard at his shoulder. His gold signet ring caught the chandelier light as he waved a slow backhand toward the service corridor. Get her to the back. Tonight, and take whatever that is with her. He was not looking at Loretta anymore. He was already turning back toward the bar. But here's what Ray Whitmore didn't know. The man whose name was on the $4, $2 million pledge check hanging on the brass easel 6 feet behind him had just walked in through the north entrance. And the first face he was looking for in that room was hers. Have you ever done something quietly right for 20 years, asked for nothing in return, and then watched a man in a tuxedo make the worst miscalculation of his political life in front of 200 witnesses and a live stream camera? But before we get to that, let me take you back 14 hours to a brick bungalow in Smoketown, Louisville, and the morning Loretta Sims almost didn't come at all. It is 9:17 in the morning. A January Friday in Louisville, Kentucky. The kitchen in Loretta's Smoketown bungalow smells like coffee and lemon cleaning solution and the biscuits she made at 7. Her burgundy church dress is on the ironing board for the 3rd time. She is not ironing it a 3rd time because it needs it. She irons it because her hands need something to do with themselves and because the certified mail envelope sitting at the edge of the kitchen table is making her nervous in a way she cannot quite describe. Calvin Reese's name on the return address. She recognized it without needing to read the print. She knew the rhythm of it. She sat down at the table 3 days ago and held the envelope for 2 full minutes before she opened it and read the invitation inside. And then she sat for 2 more minutes after, just looking at the name on the return address line. She is 61 years old. She works at the East Side Community Center 3 mornings a week and every other Saturday, $8.50 an hour. The same building where she used to bring her foster children for tutoring and summer programming, back when she was the woman with a van full of kids who needed somewhere to go after school. She knows every water stain on those ceiling tiles. She knows which hallway smells like floor cleaner on Tuesdays and which maintenance closet sticks in humidity. She knows which children come through the front door hungry and which come in loud and which come through wearing that particular silence that means something has gone badly wrong at home, and the child has not decided yet whether to trust the building with it. She has been doing this for 40 years. She did not think to count until her neighbor Dee asked her once over the back fence how many children she had fostered, and she had to go inside and sit down with a piece of paper and actually work it out from memory. 23 children over 4 decades, ranging in age from 7 months old to 15 years. Staying anywhere from 6 months to 3 full years each. She does not describe this as remarkable. She describes it the way she describes making biscuits or fixing the screen door on the back porch, as the thing she was made for, stated matter of fact, as if the alternative had never seriously occurred to her. She has not told anyone about the invitation. Not Dee, who would have made a fuss and probably organized a gift bag. Not the women at First Baptist, who would have made a bigger fuss and taken photographs. Not her sister Marvette in Indianapolis, who would have driven up and turned the whole evening into a production with commentary. Loretta simply got up this morning, made her coffee in the percolator she has had for 19 years, ironed her dress while it was still dark out, made the biscuits, and has been ironing the dress again twice more since then because the hands want to keep doing something. The note card is already written. She wrote it Wednesday evening at the kitchen table under the floor lamp in her best blue ballpoint pen, in the careful cursive her third-grade teacher spent a full semester on. 42 words. She has known what she wanted to say for years without knowing she would ever say it out loud, without knowing there would be an occasion for saying it at all. She folded the card once and put it in her purse, with no envelope, no name on the outside, just the words, carried inside her bag for 2 days, slightly creased at the fold, waiting. She does not know about the $4.2 million pledge. She does not know about the keynote speech, the live stream, the 80,000 people who follow Calvin's foundation feed. She knows only that a boy she once fed biscuits and helped through long division has become somebody real in the world, and that she wants to give him a card that says she always knew he would. That is the whole reason for the bus ride and the 4 blocks in the cold and the burgundy dress ironed 3 times. Calvin Reese came to Loretta's home in the summer he was 9 years old. He came the way most of her children came, with a black garbage bag of belongings and the particular silence of a child who has learned that loud things happen whenever adults get upset. He sat at Loretta's kitchen table and ate half a biscuit and looked at the refrigerator, where a dozen school photographs were taped in crooked rows all the way up to the cabinet above it. Pictures of children in different years, different haircuts, different ages, all of them looking at a camera in the same kitchen. He studied those photographs for a while without speaking. He did not talk for the first 45 minutes. Then he asked if she had paper because he wanted to draw. She got him paper. She did not make a production of it. She pulled a stack of printer paper from the cabinet beside the stove and set it on the table next to his plate, 2 pencils beside the stack, and she went back to the sink and finished the dishes. She had learned, through 11 children before Calvin, that certain kids need something specific to do with their hands before they can start to speak. She gave him the paper. He drew a house with a table inside it and a lamp in the corner turned on. She did not comment on what he drew. He did not explain it. By the end of that first evening, he had finished a full plate and said thank you without being prompted, and she counted that. For 3 years, from that summer when Calvin was 9 until the spring he turned 12, he did his homework at that kitchen table. He ate supper there every night. He read longer chapter books on the tarn corduroy sofa under the floor lamp while Loretta worked at the table behind him, going through the paperwork for the after-school program she volunteered for on Wednesdays. He was a careful reader, thorough, slow, sometimes moving his lips on a hard word. On the cold nights he fell asleep before bedtime, she covered him with the afghan her mother had crocheted, blue and cream and green and heavy, and she turned the floor lamp off and let him sleep. Because sleep was the one resource nobody had been giving this child enough of, and she knew from experience that a child who sleeps safely enough mornings in a row begins to trust the world slightly more with each one. The state foster stipend was $312 a month per child, $312 a month is what you get. You know what that covers in a house with 3 children under one roof, a water heater that needs replacing, and winter coming? Not hot meals every night. Not coats when kids hit a growth spurt in December. Not school supplies in September. Not all of it. Not even close. Loretta spent her own grocery money during those months. She held a second job for 6 of those years, a night cleaning shift at a medical office park on New Cut Road. 3 evenings a week, 9 o'clock to 1 in the morning. She stopped telling her sister Marvette about the second job after the 3rd time Marvette said she was letting herself be taken advantage of. And she never figured out how to explain to Marvette that you cannot be taken advantage of by a 9-year-old boy with a garbage bag and half a biscuit and a need to draw houses with their lights on. There were months she ate sandwiches herself for a week straight, so her children could have hot suppers. She did not tell anyone at the time. She is not telling you now for credit. She kept accounts only with herself, and her accounting was simple. These children need more than the state provides, so I make up the difference. End of calculation. No ledger, no martyrdom, no speech, just arithmetic at the kitchen table and then closed. Calvin moved on at 12. That is how the system works. You love them in your home, and then they move to the next place, and you pack them a better bag than the one they arrived with, fuller, with things in it they need, and you hug them at the door, and you watch the car leave, and then you go back inside. Loretta had done it 11 times before Calvin. She did it 10 more times after him. She did not stay in contact with most of them. That is also how it works. The system does not build in a return address. You give the years you give, and then the children belong to the world, and you hope that what you gave them is something that will hold when things get difficult. The hand-drawn card arrived in her mailbox 7 years after Calvin left. He was 19. He had written a small piece of software, a restaurant inventory tool, and sold it to a larger company for $22,000. His first real transaction. A number he could barely hold in his mind. Before depositing the check, he sat down and drew her a picture, a kitchen table, a biscuit on a plate, a floor lamp in the corner turned on. Under it, in his careful handwriting, "I knew what safe felt like because of you." Loretta still has that card. It lives in the drawer under the silverware tray, where she keeps the things she cannot afford to lose. She thought it was an ending, and a kind one. A boy grown up and saying thank you in the language they had built at her table. The language of that kitchen and the lamp and the biscuits. She went back to her work, her next child, her next morning. She did not think about it as a beginning. Now she sets the iron down for the last time. She puts on the burgundy dress. She checks the gold cross at her throat, the one that was her mother's and her grandmother's before that, worn smooth at the edges from 60 years of hands reaching for it when they needed something solid. She touches the note card in her purse with 2 fingers to confirm it is there. She puts on her black low-heeled pumps and does not look at the scuff on the left toe, because the scuff was there before tonight and it will be there after, and that is not what this evening is about. She cannot afford a cab. The $8.50 an hour from the community center does not stretch to January taxi fare to downtown Louisville hotels. She takes the 7:15 p.m. city bus and walks 4 blocks in the cold, her pumps on the January sidewalk, passing a town car at the hotel entrance that is unloading 2 women in long gowns and fur wraps, passing the hotel doorman in his red coat who holds the Grand Cambria's brass door for her as she approaches, which she thanks him for, which seems to genuinely surprise him. You know that feeling. Getting dressed for something that matters to you and walking to it alone and carrying something you made yourself, wondering the whole way whether you will look right when you arrive. Loretta felt all of that. She showed none of it on her face. The Grand Cambria lobby is lit the way a church is lit on Christmas Eve. Warm chandelier light, cream walls, the sound of a string quartet playing somewhere past the next set of doors. She follows the ballroom signs, past floral arrangements taller than she is, past a coat check where a young woman in a white shirt takes minks and cashmere without changing expression. She reaches the ballroom entrance arch at 7:41 p.m. She finds her invitation in her purse and holds it ready, because she has been to enough places in her life where certain kinds of people are expected to explain themselves, and she would rather have the explanation in her hand than make anyone's job harder. At 7:43 she arrives at the arch. At 7:45 p.m. she meets Trey Whitmore. Whitmore reads a room the way an experienced man reads a face, by accumulated pattern, by the habits of decades. He is co-chair of this evening. He knows the guest list by shape. The woman approaching the entrance arch is wearing a dress purchased several years ago, re-sewn at one shoulder seam. Her shoes carry a scuff on the left toe. She has no event lanyard, no clutch bag, no escort. She does not belong to any category he uses to organize the people in this room. He does not check a list. He steps directly into her path. The catering entrance, he says, in the tone of a man dispensing a courtesy he does not feel, is on the loading dock side of the building. Through the main kitchen hallway. Not loud, the particular register of a man who has never once needed volume to move people. Sandra Pruitt stands 2 steps behind him, clipboard pressed to her chest, eyes aimed somewhere between Loretta and the marble floor. 6 board members at the nearest east wall table are watching. Not one of them speaks. That silence has a name, and everyone in the room is going to have to live with it. Loretta opens her purse. She produces the invitation, cream cardstock, embossed crest, Calvin's name on the host line in raised ink, his personal signature at the bottom in the handwriting she recognized from the return address. Whitmore takes it with 2 fingers. He glances at it, glances, not reads, and returns it without finding the name. These get misaddressed all the time. A small controlled curve at the corner of his mouth. The gold signet ring taps the card once as he hands it back, a gesture so minimal it might be accidental. I'm sure we can find the right room for you. His eyes drop to the note card between Loretta's hands. A folded white square. Blue ballpoint visible at the fold. Handwritten. Not a ticket, not a printed document, not anything his system has a slot for. He tilts his head at it, the way a man tilts at something he has already dismissed and is verifying the dismissal of. And what exactly is that supposed to be? The temperature in his voice is the temperature of an empty hotel corridor at 2 in the morning. Not raised. Simply certain. Loretta's chin lifts by 1 degree. The gold cross catches the chandelier light. She says quietly, "It's a card I brought for Calvin Reese." I understand. He says it the way you say I understand when you mean this conversation has ended. His eyes have already moved to Marcus Dole. Marcus. Dole steps forward. He is professional. He places a wide, gentle hand at Loretta's elbow and turns her toward the service corridor with the quiet efficiency of a man carrying out a direction without personal involvement. The removal takes 11 seconds. Not dragged, not rough. 11 seconds. Enough for the second violinist to lift her bow off the strings mid-phrase. Enough for 30 guests near the entrance arch to see every detail. Enough for the woman with the emerald earrings at the closest high top to set her champagne glass down with a careful movement, as if sudden noise might make something worse, and put her hand on her companion's arm. Enough for 6 board members at the east wall table to watch and hold their silence, which is its own kind of answer. Enough for Sandra Pruitt to step back with her eyes aimed down at her clipboard. What Whitmore does next is worse than the first command. He moves away. He turns his back on the whole exchange before it is even finished, and he starts a conversation with a board member near the bar about the evening's program order, and the tone of his voice is the tone of a man who has already forgotten the logistics matter he just resolved. He is discussing whether the acknowledgement of the Foundation's annual partners should come before or after the keynote address. His pocket square is straight. His gold signet ring moves as he gestures. The string quartet has stopped playing. He does not notice that either. Behind him, at the entrance arch, Dola's hand is at Loretta's elbow and the corridor is ahead of them. And there are 30 people in black tie within clear sight of this moment, and every one of them is making a calculation. The calculation goes like this. Whitmore is co-chair. The removal looks procedural. Speaking up means confronting a co-chair in front of 200 people at an event you came to for your own reasons. That is a larger action than watching. And so they watch. The woman with the emerald earrings is watching. She has set down her champagne glass. She has her hand on her companion's arm. She is watching Loretta walk through the glass door, and she is not saying anything, and she will think about that later tonight, in the car home, and then again in the morning, and the thinking will not feel clean. The 6 board members at the east wall table are watching. 3 of them know Whitmore personally. 1 of them has served with him on the co-chair board for 7 years. None of them speak. The silence they are holding is the silence of institutional self-preservation, which is the most durable silence there is, and also the one most likely to collapse all at once when circumstances change. Sandra Pruitt is not watching. She is looking at the clipboard. There is nothing on the clipboard that requires her attention right now. She knows this. The clipboard is a place for her eyes to be. Whitmore smooths his pocket square. The white triangle returns to its sharp point. He turns back toward the room with the easy posture of a man who has resolved a minor logistical matter. Behind him, the framed $4, $2 million pledge check sits on its brass easel under a spotlight, and he is standing in front of it like a man who owns everything in the frame. In his mind, right now, he does. The service corridor is cream-painted drywall and a single fluorescent tube that flickers once and holds. Cold air seeps under the exterior glass door at the far end. Loretta puts her back against the wall. She holds the note card between both palms. She can hear the string quartet through the ballroom glass, hesitant, starting again, finding the phrase. She thinks about the 9:40 p.m. bus, whether 4th Street is a shorter walk to the stop than 5th. She does not cry. Loretta Sims has stood in harder rooms than this one. She has sat across a caseworker's desk and explained with patience and no volume why a specific child needed more time in a stable home, and she was that home. She has eaten sandwiches for a week. She has held a 12-year-old's hand in a parking lot in January cold and said the things that needed saying, which were not big things. Just true ones. A flickering corridor tube and cold air under a door do not reach the floor of the things she has gotten through. She breathes. She holds the note card. She thinks about the children on the walls in that kitchen back in Smoketown. 12 photographs, crooked rows, climbing up to the cabinet. She put the first one up in 1988. A girl named Danielle who liked to braid her own hair, who left after 7 months and never looked back, and that was all right. Some of them don't look back, and that is not a failure of what you gave them. She put the last one up 2 years ago. Between those 2 photographs, 22 others. Some of them she hears from. A card at Christmas. A phone call when a baby is born. 2 of them she has met their children now, which is a thing she did not anticipate happening when she was 21 and first filling out the foster application at the kitchen table she bought at a garage sale for $12. She thinks about the boy before Calvin, a 14-year-old named Marcus, who had been in 6 placements in 2 years and arrived at her door on a Tuesday afternoon in February with a look on his face like a person who has stopped expecting anything to be different. He sat at the kitchen table for 3 days before he talked. Then one Tuesday he started talking and did not stop for 2 hours, and she sat and listened and did not rush any of it. He was with her for 2 years and 2 months. He is an electrician now in Nashville. He called her last spring to tell her he passed his master license exam. She said she always knew he would. She says that every time, and she means it every time. She thinks about all of that, standing in this corridor with the fluorescent tube overhead and the cold air at her ankles and the muffled sound of a string quartet starting and stopping on the other side of the glass. 23 children across 40 years. More than 23 years of her own life if you add the years up. She would do it again. She would do every year of it again. Every Tuesday of it. Every week of sandwiches so 3 kids could eat hot. Every night shift at the office park on Newcut Road. She would do it again without the possibility of a $4.2 million pledge or a brass easel or a gala or a card behind glass in a hallway. She would do it again for the hand-drawn card in the drawer under the silverware tray, which she has already said is enough. She does not know yet that the room she just left is about to become something different. But her back is against the wall, and the note card is between her palms, and the bus schedule is in her head, and she is, as she has always been, fine. What she does not know, and what is now documented in the Gala office phone records and the email logs, is that at 11:32 a.m. that morning, Calvin Reese's personal assistant called the Whitmore Foundation Gala office. She spoke to a staff member named Bridget Callahan and made a straightforward request: add 1 name to the evening's guest list. Loretta Sims. Smoketown Community Center. Personal guest of the keynote speaker. Bridget wrote the name on a notepad. She did not enter it into the Gala management system before her lunch break. When she returned, there was a board member on the phone about a seating conflict, and the notepad ended up under a binder, and the name Loretta Sims was never entered into the system. 1 call, 1 notepad, 1 binder placed on top of it. That is the entire distance between Loretta Sims standing alone in a cold corridor and Loretta Sims walking into a ballroom on the arm of the man she helped raise. 1 call, 1 piece of paper under a binder. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it right now. There are more stories like this one coming, and you don't want to miss the next one. Let's get back to that corridor. At 8:06 p.m., Calvin Reese comes through the north stage door. All black tuxedo, open collar, the worn brown leather bracelet on his left wrist. Calm. He has given speeches in larger rooms, donated to larger foundations. By every measure the people in this ballroom use to count importance, he is the most important person who will stand at that podium tonight. He scans the room for Loretta's face. He sent the invitation himself. He had his assistant called twice to confirm. He planned this night specifically as her moment, not for cameras, not for spectacle, but because Loretta Sims has never once stood in a room where anyone with real power acknowledged what she built. And she had earned at least one room where that happened in front of witnesses. He has been quietly funding her community center's operations budget for 2 years without telling her. He wanted her to walk through those ballroom doors tonight and see what 40 years of kitchen tables and blue ballpoint and borrowed coats had made. He does not see her face in the room. He sees Sandra Pruitt near the South Corridor entrance, clipboard lowered to her side, wearing an expression that was not on her face 20 minutes ago. He crosses the floor. 14 steps. He stops in front of her and speaks low and flat. Where is she? Pruitt looks toward the service corridor door. Across the room at the bar, Whitmore watches this exchange. A tall young man in all black, speaking quickly to Pruitt. He does not know the name yet. He does not know what Pruitt is pointing at. He has approximately 4 minutes before both things change beyond his ability to manage them. Calvin pushes the glass door open. The cold hits him immediately. Loretta is 10 feet away, back against the wall. Note card between her palms. Gold cross in the weak fluorescent light. She looks at him the same way she looked at him when he was 9, and she was reading what he needed without making him explain it, fully present, steady, nothing performed. He says her name. She says Calvin. You look fine. He laughs, a real laugh, from the chest, the kind that comes out of something releasing. How long have you been out here? Not long. He takes off his jacket and puts it around her shoulders. She accepts it and immediately tries to give it back. He shakes his head once. He takes the note card from her hands with both of his and holds it in the fluorescent light and reads it. He does not read it fast. He reads to the end. He holds it in both hands for a long, full moment without speaking. Then he looks at her. Walk back in with me. Calvin, you really don't have to, I know. Walk back in with me. He offers his arm. She takes it. The glass door opens from the corridor side at 8:14 p.m. The warm chandelier light falls across Loretta Sims's face. Calvin is in the doorway, tall, open-collar shirt, his black jacket around Loretta's shoulders, the braided leather bracelet on his left wrist. Behind them, the cold corridor goes dark. Whitmore has been told who Calvin Reese is. 3 people in the last 4 minutes. His phone is out, the Gala roster on screen. He is looking for the name Loretta Sims. It is not on the list. A name not on the list means a procedurally justified removal. A procedurally justified removal cannot be used against him. He is building this case with the focused discipline of a man who has managed political exposure for 20 years and believes he can manage this. He is still building it when the room goes quiet. Not the way it went quiet before. That was 30 people near a door. This is 200 people registering the same thing simultaneously. The string quartet lifts their bows without anyone telling them. They feel the room change, and they stop. Loretta Sims walks through the main entrance arch of the Grand Cambria Ballroom on Calvin Reese's arm. Burgundy church dress. Silver bun, slightly loosened from the cold. Gold cross at her throat. His black jacket around her shoulders. Scuff on the left shoe. Exactly herself. Calvin walks her across the marble floor. Not one person speaks. The board members near the north wall reorganize, bodies turning, weight shifting toward the entrance. The woman with the emerald earrings, who set her champagne down and put her hand on her companion's arm, is now simply standing, facing forward, watching Loretta walk across the floor she was removed from. Calvin walks her to the base of the stage stairs. He offers his hand. She takes it. They go up together. At 8:17 p.m., Calvin Reese steps to the glass podium. He does not take out prepared remarks. He takes out the note card and smooths it flat on the podium with both hands. Complete silence. "I'm going to read you something first," he says. Even, almost quiet. The voice of a man who has decided that precision is more powerful than volume. Before the pledge, before any numbers, I want to read you 42 words. They are the reason I am standing here. He reads, "Calvin, I always told you that what you put out in the world comes back. I don't need it to come back to me. I just needed you to know that somebody saw you from the beginning. You were never lost." Loretta, he sets the note card on the podium. He looks up. He looks across 200 people and finds Dre Whitmore's face. "The woman who wrote that," he says, "was removed from this room tonight. Before I arrived, she was standing alone in a cold corridor in January while this room was lit and warm, and 200 people were inside it." The room turned pale in sections. Board members first, the ones near the entrance arch. Their faces made the change that faces make when a person understands simultaneously what was done and what it costs. Then the donors. Then the 6 people who had been within arm's reach of the arch when it happened and said nothing. Their faces went through a different change. The one that happens when you recognize your silence was a choice, and the choice is now visible to everyone in the room. This pledge exists because of her. He points to the framed check on the brass easel. $4.2 million. The spotlight on the corner of the frame. Every dollar of it. If she is not in this room tonight, I am not standing on this stage. He turns to where Loretta stands 6 feet to his right at the edge of the stage, hands clasped in front of her, chin level, looking at the crowd the way a woman looks at something she grew for 40 years without knowing she was growing it. The $4.2 million is dedicated in her name. The first $2.1 million, already transferred before tonight, goes to the Louisville foster care network she gave 40 years of her life to. The second draw, announced right now, extends the network's reach across the full county. He pauses, and I want to speak with this board tonight about a separate operational grant. Because the woman who wrote that card earns $8.50 an hour. And that ends tonight. Whitmore's face has gone the gray-white of the corridor wall where he sent her. The pocket square is still sharp. The lapel pin is still on his chest, but something beneath the charcoal double-breasted tuxedo has shifted at its foundations, and the room is watching it happen in real time in the slow forward drop of his broad shoulders and the stillness of the hand with the gold signet ring that is no longer raised or reaching for anything. The braided leather bracelet on Calvin's left wrist is visible in the live stream camera's close-up. 80,000 people watching at home. The comments are already running too fast to read. That bracelet, thin brown leather, fraying slightly at one edge near the clasp, Calvin has worn for 24 years. Loretta braided it for him at her kitchen table when he was 10 years old, the morning after he asked her why she always smiled when things were hard. She told him, "Because hard things end, and you'll want to remember you got through this one." She braided it while she talked. He watched her hands the whole time. He put it on when she finished, and he has not taken it off since. Not for board meetings, not for magazine covers, Not once in 24 years. For 24 years he has worn her work on his left wrist into every room that ever mattered to him, and not one person in any of those rooms knew what it was. Now the camera knows. Loretta is at the edge of the stage with her hands clasped. She did not prepare for this. She prepared for a service door and a bus ride home and a cup of tea at the kitchen table and the quiet satisfaction of having given someone something he needed. The way she has done everything that matters to her, quietly, without an audience, without credit. She prepared 42 words in blue ballpoint. She did not prepare for 200 people in formal dress or a live stream camera or Calvin Reese reading her cursive into a podium microphone in front of cameras and a crowd. But 40 years of loving children no one else would take in teaches you something about rooms that become larger than you planned. You do not perform. You do not panic. You stay the person you already were before the room changed. She stays that person. The applause begins on the left side of the room, at the table with the woman in emerald earrings. Then the table behind her. Then the northeast corner. Then the center. Then it fills the Grand Cambria ballroom the way a large room changes its mind collectively. Not synchronized, not organized, just real. One table at a time, making the same decision until it is everywhere. Dre Whitmore does not applaud. He holds his phone. Then he does something that surprises even his own assistant standing 8 feet away. He sets his drink on the bar, walks to the near side of the room, and sits in the first empty chair his hand finds, which happens to be at a table with 3 foundation board members who are already reading their phones with the expression of people processing information that is going to require immediate decisions. He is correct. At 11:47 p.m., those 3 board members send a joint message to the Foundation's legal counsel. At 7:12 the next morning, before the Louisville Courier's account goes live, before the live stream clip crosses 1 million views, Dre Whitmore submits his resignation as co-chair of the Whitmore Foundation. 4 sentences. Personal reasons. No admission of specific error. Nobody in Louisville is surprised by the statement. Nobody is confused about the actual reason. The Courier runs the story at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. The headline image shows Calvin at the glass podium, the note card held in both hands, the $4.2 million framed check visible on the brass easel behind him. In the far left corner of the image, slightly out of focus, you can see a woman in a burgundy dress with a gold cross at her throat, standing at the edge of the stage with her hands clasped and her chin level and her silver bun loosened by the January cold of a service corridor. She is looking at the room the way a woman looks at something she grew for 40 years without knowing she was growing it. The operational grant arrives the following Tuesday, $400,000, structured as a 5-year commitment with disbursement controlled by Loretta Sims herself. The first thing she does is call the community center director and tell him to post 2 part-time staff positions the center has needed for 3 years and has not been able to fund. The second thing she does is show up for her next shift. The grant money belongs to the work. She does not confuse those 2 things, and she never has. The note card is framed the following week. Calvin has it done at a framing shop on Bardstown Road. Simple black frame, no matting, clear glass, so the blue ballpoint and the careful cursive are legible from across a hallway. He carries it to the community center himself and hangs it in the main hall at the height where a child can stand and read it without having to tilt their head up. Loretta comes in the next morning and walks past it 3 times, doing her opening routine, before she stops and looks at it directly. She reads the 42 words she already knows by heart. Then she straightens the frame by 1 degree and goes to start the coffee. The braided leather bracelet is still on Calvin's left wrist. He does not explain it in interviews. He did not explain it to the magazine photographer who asked in 2021 if he could remove it for the shot. He said no. A print journalist asked once at a round table what it was. He said, "Something someone made me when I was 10. The journalist made a note and moved to the next question. Calvin did not elaborate. He didn't need to, because Loretta already said what needed to be said. She said it in 42 words in careful blue ballpoint on a white note card in a cold service corridor in January. A card that a man in a charcoal tuxedo glanced at and called whatever that is and handed back. Those 42 words are behind glass in a hallway now, at the height where children stand to read. And some of those children will read them. And some of them will carry a line the way Calvin carried a kitchen table and a lamp in the corner and a woman who got him paper because he asked. Into rooms Loretta will never know about, the way you carry something given freely by someone who wanted nothing back. What you put out in the world comes back. You know this. You have felt that pull between giving something quietly and waiting to find out if it will ever matter. Most of the time what comes back is small. A phone call, a card in a kitchen drawer, a bracelet still on a wrist 24 years later in every room that mattered. Most of the time it does not come back in a ballroom with crystal chandeliers and a live stream and 200 people going still all at once and a man reading your cursive into a microphone. But sometimes it does. Sometimes the room reorganizes itself in front of your eyes, and the person who decided who belonged where has to sit in a chair on the side and watch. And the woman in the burgundy dress walks across the marble floor under the chandeliers and takes the arm of the man she helped raise and goes up the stairs to the stage she was never supposed to reach. And the card she wrote at a kitchen table under a floor lamp goes behind glass in a hallway where it belongs. What would you have done, standing in that corridor with the note card between your palms and the cold coming under the door and the bus schedule in your head? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know. If this story meant something to you, like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe if you haven't already. There are more stories coming. Next time, a man spends 11 years building a freight company from a single route nobody else wanted. And the morning he signs the biggest contract of his career, someone physically shoves him off the loading dock he acquired ownership of that same morning. That story is next. You don't want to miss it. There are 80,000 people watching live. By morning there will be 400,000 views on the clip of Calvin reading the note card. By the weekend it will be 3 million. The comments are not all the same, but they are all saying versions of the same thing. Which is, I had a person like this and I never told them what they meant to me. That is what a story like this one does. It makes people think about the kitchen tables in their own pasts, the people who got them paper when they needed to draw, the floor lamps they fell asleep under, the voices that said you are not lost. Loretta will not read the comments. She does not have an account on the platforms where people are leaving them. She will hear about it from Dee over the back fence, and from the women at First Baptist on Sunday, and from the community center director when she comes in for her next shift, and she will receive all of it with the same expression she wore on the stage, present, steady, not surprised and not performing surprise. She has known for 40 years what she was doing at that kitchen table. She did not need 200 people in black tie to tell her it mattered. But she is glad that Calvin knows. That is enough. That has always been enough for Loretta Sims. The gold cross is still at her throat. The note card is in its frame. And the 42 words are exactly where Loretta put them. In the hallway where the children walk through. At the height where they can read.